Hello ladies and gents, welcome back to another video, and in this video I'm going to be showing everyone the best Tarkov settings this wipe and my personal settings that I use. So let's start off with the game settings. This is for wipe 15.0 by the way. Everything here is for wipe 15.0. So for game settings, I would recommend copy everything here unless something isn't to your preference, like the color scheme. If you want a different one, not the green one, then I would suggest changing it. And then everything else here, keep the same. FOV is dependent on what you prefer. If you prefer a wider, area of view, I would set it to 74. I wouldn't put 75, just not to have the max range to feel weird. And the most important setting here is head bobbing. You do not want to turn this on at all. If you keep it on the lowest, it's just a trash setting. I don't know why they even have this in the game. I would use only RAM cleaner and only physical cores if you have a lower end system. If you don't have a very good CPU and you don't have a lot of RAM, like 16 gigs of RAM, then I would turn this on. If you have more than 16 gigs, like 24 or 32, I wouldn't bother with this. And the most important setting we're going to go to next is going to be graphics settings. Graphics settings are, for this wipe, going to be a little bit different than my usual ones because of their changes. So usually I play on borderless. I would keep borderless on for easier alt tabbing. I just have full screen on due to my recording software. That way I can record with better quality and more stability. And for texture quality, if you have, so this is going to be really important to know for people that have lower end systems. Typically, if you have a new system with the 40 series cards, you won't have to worry about this. But if you have a little bit lower end systems, or if you have like a 30 series card like me, you might need to listen to this and change this setting. So if you have 10 gigabytes of VRAM and below that, I highly suggest putting the texture quality on medium. Do not put this higher than medium if you have less than 10 gigs of VRAM. The reason being is that when you play maps like streets, especially, if you pull up something like MSI Afterburner and go down to your VRAM usage tab and you look, it's going to be using that whole entire 10 or 9.5 gigs of VRAM, and you're pretty much limited out on VRAM. The game is just not optimized enough for that, unfortunately, so you're going to have to be forced to lower your texture quality. But if you are playing on something like a 4080 with, I think it has 16 gigs of VRAM, then you don't need to worry about this. You can just set this to high and you'll be perfectly fine. Next setting, shadows quality. I would keep this on low. I wouldn't turn it like on high or ultra. Really, no need. It's just shadows. Object LED quality. I find the overall best at 2.5. If you're looking for like sniping or something, I turn it up to 3. I wouldn't go higher than 3. I would keep it between 2 and 3. Right, that's why I put it in the middle. Overall visibility, 1500 is my go-to, but if you feel like you have worse FPS with it on more open maps, I would lower it to 1000, but 1500 should be good enough for most people. And then for the other settings, low, TAA high, you can set this to off, honestly, if you don't care about any visual fidelity. And the most important thing here is FSR 2.2, NVIDIA DLSS. Personally, I would keep these off. You really don't need these, and unless you have like a really, really bad PC and you're really struggling to run the game, then you would need these. But if you have a decent system, not like a NASA computer, you really don't need these. Like my personal system is a NVIDIA 3080 and a 5800X 3D CPU with 32 gigs of VRAM, and I play on streets at 2K with no DLSS, and I get around 90 FPS or 100 depending on the area. So I do not recommend turning these on. They just look like trash and don't really give you any performance. Resampling, 1x off, HBO off, SSR off, anisotropic filtering per texture, and NVIDIA Reflex low latency. I would keep this on. I wouldn't put it on boost. I've seemed to have quite a bit of issues when I put it on boost, and other people do as well. I recommend putting it on either on or off. That's really my go-to. Sharpness, this is personal preference. Everyone has different monitor settings. I personally keep it 0.5 or below. And another really important setting is lobby FPS limit and game FPS limit. I would make sure to keep your game FPS limit on 60 It's not going to actually give your game 60 FPS, but it's pretty much a bug to where your game uses way more power for no reason when you set this higher. It's hard to explain, but just set this to 60. And then on the bottom here, I put high quality color personally because I like it better for recording and for gameplay myself. But this does take a little bit of performance, and obviously Streets of Tarkov lower texture resolution mode for better frames. On to post effect settings. These are going to be my post effect settings for visual, fidelity. Everyone has different preferences. Everyone has different monitors. These are just the ones I use. So you can try them out, see if you like them. If you like them, use them. If you don't use them. For sound, nothing really interesting here. I would keep binaural audio on. I feel like it's actually not as bad as it used to be when turned off. So I think it's decent right now. And the most important thing this wipe is going to be controls, because they did add a few new binds. So if we're going to scroll down here, where is it? There should be a bind called... Well, first of all, the first bind is the check chamber fix malfunction. I would always set this to L. I personally like it. I would set this to L, and then make sure you set this on release. So check chamber fix malfunction on release, and then you set inspect current weapon on L as well, on the same keybind, and press. So what happens then is when you press L and you hold it, inspect your weapon, and then you release it, it automatically fixes your chamber malfunction within one key press. So you just press the button, hold it, let go, it fixes your malfunction. Really helpful bind. And then the next really important bind this wipe is going to be, if I can find it, is going to be, here it is, scope, zoom in and out. So with this wipe, they added a new feature for most LPVOs, which are going to be your 1 to 24x's, 12x's, your voodoos, your tangos, your vortexes, your Schmin benders. You can pretty much scroll the variable zoom on your scope now. So if you want your scope on 3x instead of 6x or 1x, you can do that. You can just scroll wheel it. I think by default it's Alt and then scroll wheel, but personally I set these on mouse wheel scroll up. So when I scroll up, my scope zooms in. When I scroll down, my scope zooms out. Or retracts, I would say. And that's about it. Those are the most important settings to swipe, and yeah. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoy these settings.